Alrighty everyone, welcome back to Planet of the Daleks. We're just gonna jump right into episode 4 here in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so I was talking about at the end of last episode about how the trivia section is sort of missing on Amazon for these serials, which I find to be a bit of a shame, especially when it comes to Planet of the Daleks, because there's some interesting stuff. You'll see when we get to episode 6. I'll talk to you about some of the interesting stuff that went on in the production of this episode. Hint, hint, it relates to those bad Dalek movies that were made in the 60s with Peter Cushing in them. And Peter Cushing's the best part of them. Peter Cushing is my favorite Doctor, actually, as a matter of fact. And if you disagree, then you're basically not even valid. Yeah, here we go. We've got our four main characters here escaping via hot air balloon. And of course the Daleks were just a little too late to see him, which gives them enough time to escape. And I can't remember how, they send a Dalek up after them. Just one Dalek, of course, because, you know, that's how Daleks operate, you know. If they think that, they can kill shit very easily if they just send troops up. They only ever send one, you know. That's just the Dalek MO. But I can't remember if they actually use a levitation here or not to chase after the hot air balloon crew. I do like the idea of just like being stuck in a very slow elevator with people that you barely know for miles, you know, and that's basically what that situation is with higher stakes. They're just like stuck slowly elevating up the heat exhaust of the Dalek city, and they don't really have fucking anything to talk about. They've got basically nothing in common except for the two Thals, Terran and Rebek. I know there's three Thals. I should have worded that differently, but Terran and Rebek are romantically involved, and I think Terran's there. I think. You know who isn't there? Merritt, the brave soul who who used the Daleks to assist in his suicide. God, fucking, I miss Merritt already. I think he was probably the best Thal character in the entire show. Speaking of the Thals, I want to talk real quick, because in between recording episode 2 and episode 3, by the way, there's been a bit of a time difference, and I've actually finished Genesis of the Daleks now in my marathon. And I wanted to talk quickly about how it's interesting that Terry Nation wrote the precursor to the Daleks, you know, the Khalids. He wrote them to be a little less sympathetic towards Davros and the Dalek project. Like, they originally wanted peace, really, you could say, more than the Thals. And it's interesting to see that. Whereas the Thals originally as well, they were more warmongering. They wanted to eliminate the Khalids. I think one of the Thals in Genesis of the Daleks, when they launched their rocket, one of them literally says, "We will fucking exterminate the Khalids." And that's very interesting, because obviously, years later, in the original 1963 serial, The Daleks, they talk about, or the Thals are represented as peace-loving people, you know. They are zen, they don't want anything to fucking... They don't want war or any of this bad shit. They don't even want to fight back with the Daleks. They just want to fucking live their lives in peace in the forest. But, and it all sort of comes full circle when you go back here, and the Thals have become just as, like, sort of ingenuitive as the Daleks. And they sort of want to kill them as much as the Daleks want to kill everything else, you know. And I missed the explanation as to why this Dalek goes up and none others do just now. I also missed the explanation as to whether or not this is the Dalek flying. I'm pretty sure this is the Dalek using its own flying mechanism. but I can't be sure. I always remembered like the first example of Daleks ever being able to fly, being, I think it was Remembrance of the Daleks. No, it was Revelation of the Daleks. It's the 80s Dalek story with Colin Baker in it. Each of the last 3 Doctors in Classic Who only had one story with the Daleks, and all of those stories are pretty good. So they kept them limited, you know. They kept them in check, you could say. They didn't use the Daleks every fucking season like it was in early Classic Who, when Dalek Mania was a big thing. They didn't make movies about the Daleks in the 80s, you know. Here we see Joe Grant mercilessly blow up 2 Daleks in the jungle with a bomb. Just taking those fuckers out. See, imagine like Liz Shaw in this. I don't know why that would have been cooler if it was Liz Shaw doing that, because Joe, she seems like she just accidentally blew up some Daleks. Liz Shaw would have like fucking thrown that bomb at him or something and been like, hey, fuck you. Fucking love Liz Shaw. She's my favorite companion. I think I said that earlier on. Oh shit. Why is there a ladder here? I have never thought about that before. Why is there handholds on the side of the heat exhaust shaft in the Dalek city? What is the point of those things right there? Is it to help heat flow better? You'd think not, because that would like catch it or some bullshit. Is it for maintenance? No, because Daleks can fly. Is it for the Spyridans to go down there and do shit? Maybe it's for the Spyridans. It's really stupid if it's for the Spyridans, but maybe it is. And I love how that exists only to fabricate drama here, because they just pull out ropes and they get him up anyways. So there's no real danger. You know, there's no real threat. They're trying to hang John Pertwee here, obviously. They're ready. These guys are some Doctor Who mega fans, and they just want Tom Baker. But unfortunately, Pertwee's a little smart for them. But yeah, it just sort of like fabricates drama and suspense when you have just pointless sort of bullshit like that. And it sort of takes me out of the story, especially, and I'm sure some of you at home can share that idea. But... Oh, I think I know what's happening. The Dalek's not flying. It was on a little disc, I'm pretty sure. Okay, maybe that's... But that begs the question, why is there a disc that would actually treat the heat exhaust mechanism of this city? Why is there a disc that would basically treat it like an elevator shaft? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think, if you're counting here, by the way, there's way more than 12 Daleks that have either been... Like, so far, I'm pretty sure 5 Daleks have been killed, and there's way more than 7 in that room. Not way more, but there's like 8 or 9 in that room, so... You can already tell, like, the monster clock idea that I was talking about. You know, I said they sort of half implemented it in this episode, because... Really, you're not just dealing with a dozen Daleks here. See, here's a common character trait with Jo is that she talks a lot and very fast and doesn't really pay attention a lot to what other people might be saying to her, which is It's a very it's like a token blonde woman role, especially in the 70s. And it's so weird, especially coming off the heels of Carolyn John, who played the amazing Liz Shaw, who was this progressive badass woman who took shit from no one. Just going instantly to Joe Grant from that, it's so weird. And I don't hate Joe as much as it looks like I'm hating on her now. I wish so much that we just got 4 seasons, 3 or 4 seasons with Liz Shaw instead. Here we got character development for Taryn, the only fall character that changes. This is like, I don't really know how to describe this. Like, it's interesting that they went to this route with the character. It's not because she's a woman, and that's why she shouldn't have gone on, because this is a war, it's dangerous for women. I love that that's not the reason, because usually in, like, fucking 70s, that would be the reason. It's like, oh, you're a woman, this mission's too dangerous for you. But no, the reason Taryn would prefer her to not have gone is because they're in love. So, the fact that she's a woman doesn't even really matter too much compared to the fact that they are lovers. And that's why Taryn finds himself incapable, sort of, to continue this mission. Or continue making the right decisions this mission. I love it when the Daleks are being mad scientists and just cooking up shit in their meth labs. Although, especially for the invasion stories for the Daleks, it's usually the same stuff, where they just make a plague, send it out, and then kill shit afterwards, or subjugate it in slavery. Here we've got a bit of a continuity to Frontier in Space, which the story doesn't have a lot of. You wouldn't think, just coming and watching this story, that it's a direct sequel to Frontier in Space, other than a few superficial nods to it. One of the biggest themes about this story, and it unfortunately the Daleks suffer to it, is like courage and sort of human ingenuity overcoming robotic tendencies and just like doing very rigid things. Because one of the biggest problems with the story is that the Daleks don't act like Daleks. They act like robots that vaguely look like Daleks. They act like Cybermen. Cybermen are purely logical. They don't have emotions. The thing with Daleks is they do have emotions, and those emotions usually cloud their logic most of the time. So it's the same problem with this and Destiny of the Daleks and a few others, where Terry Nation maybe just fucking forgot that there are bubbling lumps of hate inside Dalek shells. And he was like, well, yeah, they're robots now, I guess. We got some Subnautica science in here. Rocks that discharge solar energy, some bullshit. I love that sort of science fiction, but more leaning on the science side, where it just has weird things, weird alien things that do weird alien shit. And it's probably not entirely plausible, but it's at the very least interesting. Here's Lotep. Lotep is purely here because Joe needs some character development right before she's about to leave next serial on the Green Death. So here's Lotep, who's this Thal character that she meets, and it's implied that she falls in love with Lotep here, and he offers to bring her back to Skaro so they can live out the rest of their days. And John Pertwee's like, well, you can go. I'm not keeping you in the TARDIS. If you want to go to Skaro, you fucking go there. You can live out your days with Lotep. And eventually, Joe decides not to do that, obviously, because the Green Death does exist. But it sort of contributes to her decision in the Green Death, with a nice bit of continuity. It contributes to her decision to stay with Professor Jones rather than continuing adventuring with the Doctor. I suppose another reason why I don't like Joe Grant is it's implied there's romantic subtext with her and the Doctor. And God, I fucking hate the Doctor being romantically involved with anyone. It just doesn't make sense for a timeless, sexless being like the Doctor to be romantically involved with anyone in the ways that we can interpret it, at least, That's one of my biggest things with New Who, is the Doctor falls in love with goddamn everyone he meets. Especially in the David Tennant era. Here we got Weber being a very what the fuck was I about to say? I don't want to say something accidentally offensive, because I've been known to do that when I'm not really thinking, unfortunately. But Weber's here being a little disagreeable, not really seeing the light that, just fucking bum rushing the Daleks with the bombs you've got is not a good idea. Yeah, Weber's here like, oh, you're waiting too long, dude. What are you gonna do? It's like, okay, that's okay, Weber. What are you up to? It's just I find the character of Weber to be very hilarious almost, because he blatantly betrays the rest of the Thals. He blatantly betrays them just for his glory. But then at the end he sacrifices himself for his team. So maybe Weber goes through character development as well. Although it's more subtle and probably not intended by Terry Nation, because Terry Nation couldn't give less of a shit, I'm sure. I wonder how long a Spyrodon day is. One of the problems with this story is that it's another Dalek problem, of course, because the Daleks are littered with problems in this story. One of the problems is that all of the Daleks have the exact same voice, and the voice, it is better than the voices in Day of the Daleks, which was the Dalek story directly before this one. Not directly before it, like airing-wise, but directly before it in terms of Dalek stories. The voices are so much better, but there's only one voice for all of the Daleks. So it's a little like, who's talking right now? And it's especially, it's doubly bad, considering the fact that the lights when the Daleks are talking, and I mentioned this before, but the lights when they're talking are not entirely synced up with what they're saying half the time. So you just get this weird effect of, you don't know which Dalek is talking, you don't know... Like it's sort of hard to follow what they're saying almost, because you just hear words and you see the lights, and it's like giving you your different auditory information and different visual information as to what the Daleks are saying, and you're trying to work it all out in your brain, all while considering the fact that all of the Daleks sound the same. And it is just so fucking hard to make head or tail of which Dalek's talking, what they're saying, you know, what's happening in those scenes. And it's especially bad when the Supreme Dalek in episode 6 gets introduced, because he's got a great fucking design. But he unfortunately just doesn't have the voice to go with it, you know. And he's underused. Like, he should have been introduced maybe in this episode. He comes down, and it's a new threat for the adventurers to deal with, you know, our heroes to deal with. It would be a new threat because, well, the Supreme lands halfway through the story. And now that's something else we've got to contend with. Oh, and he's not afraid to kill other Daleks just to get what he wants. Like, oh, halfway through the story, introducing that as, like, the main sort of antagonistic force to take down. It would have made this shit so much better. But here we are, and we're in the modern day stuck with the planet of the Daleks that we did get, which is subpar. But, still holds a special place in my heart, and I can't quite say why. It's probably because it has my favorite Dalek design in it. Let's get that out of the way. The Supreme in this story is my favorite Dalek design. But yeah, that'll do it for episode 4. So I guess, I'll see you guys in the next one, hopefully. Hopefully y'all tune in for that. See ya. Have a good one.